Welcome to What We Wish We Had Known, our mini series on things that we wish we had known earlier before becoming certified sex therapists. So, Callie, one of the things I wish I would have known about infidelity is that while it's extremely important to repair the trust that has been broken due to the infidelity, it's just as important to have a second phase of treatment where you're talking and exploring with the couple and both partners individually and together about their sexual lives. Because
Mhm.
if that's not actually discussed and uh, having the couple and the partners discuss it, it may never change. So the underlying conditions of the infidelity are never actually being addressed. So that's what I wish I would have known.
Yeah. And what are some ways that you have addressed that in therapy with couples? That
Well,
now
when
you
we
like looking back now you were like, "Oh, I wish that was like that I had that intervention or I had that way of wording things back then."
So one of the things I'll do, we both do, right, is we see our partners individually,
Mhm.
and we want to find out about their sexual history growing up. We want to find out if there was any trauma growing up that maybe they haven't actually even addressed individually or with their partner. We want to find out sometimes if they have a specific kind of sexual behavior or interest or kink that was very much a part of their identity, if you will, or experience from a very young age,
Mhm.
which really was part and parcel of what they did when they crossed their sexual exclusivity agreement.
Mhm.
So those are things I wish I knew how to ask about way back when, because it would have helped a lot in helping the couple really fully repair if they
Mhm.
decided to stay together.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish it too that I would have known those things and like how to incorporate that into the conversation of like how do these things impact your sexual relationship or what was your sexual relationship or emotional relationship like leading up to the affair or the infidelity. And that kind of ties into another thing that I wish that I would have known when I was a general therapist is that infidelity happens for a number of reasons. Back when I was a couples therapist, I'm still a couples therapist, but not trained in sexual issues. I thought, oh, it was because of lack of attraction or lack of novelty in the relationship. But really, people can have, spicy sex lives and novel sex lives and still infidelity can happen because maybe there's self-esteem issues, maybe there's self-worth issues, maybe they're looking for some emotional thing outside of the relationship that they're seeking and they want to fulfill that, and it's not always about the other partner, it's really about something that's inside of them and their own internal experience, but then it does impact the partner.
Yes, and as my colleague Esther Perel wrote in her wonderful book, State of Affairs, mortality, existential and angst, um, as really can play into an infidelity, which is
Mhm.
either you become heightened aware of your own mortality and time ticking by because someone got a terminal illness, someone you love in your family has died um, early,
Mhm.
suddenly. Those kinds of traumas and sort of wake up calls become, I've had clients say to me, my someone close to me died, and right then and there, I realized I'm so unhappy. I'm
Mhm.
so unhappy in my marriage, and I'm going to take care of myself at this time, as opposed to saying, let me go into couples therapy to talk with my partner about how unhappy I am. They went and just enacted it.
Mhm. I'm wondering, this just kind of popped up for me as you were talking about that. Since the pandemic happened, I've seen a lot of couples that have been impacted, their relationships been impacted by the pandemic, by the effects of it, right? And I'm wondering what the statistics are on like infidelity because of the trauma of the pandemic.
Now, that's an interesting study. I
Mhm.
don't know about that. I know that There have been many studies, medical studies, because of long COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And there have been studies among urologists around the impact of long COVID or COVID in and of itself on sexual functioning in men.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, as a reminder, everybody, the penis is part of the cardiovascular system. And so we know that COVID does damage to the cardiovascular system, the vascular system. So, but how that intertwines with infidelity, and or fear of death and anxiety, or death anxiety, as Irving Yalom would call it, I really don't know. That's a very good question.
Yeah. And, sadly, in not taking into the factor of COVID, but up to 40% of married couples are impacted by infidelity. So this is something that general couples therapist or general therapist will see in their offices, and knowing what to ask, how to ask, like how to really engage the clients in each stage of their repair or recovery, whether that's individually or as a couple, is so important.
And I also think that's an important thing you just said, which is differently than some couples therapists out there who might be watching, who may have been trained to never see the partners individually, separately. We do. And it's important because sometimes we get very important information that contributes to our understanding and hypothesis and the treatment plan for the couple. And we do say to our couple partners, like what you say in here is confidential. It's really to help us formulate like where we think we can go here as a couple, whether someone wants to sort of talk about what they talked about with you individually with their partner or not. It does contribute to our understanding and hypothesizing and treatment plan of the case.
Yeah, that's always something that I bring up in like the first session when I talk about the structures of our session, and I say, okay, I'm going to see you each individually, and that is completely confidential, and I'm not going to bring up what we talk about here in our couple session. That's something for you to, if you want, bring up, and we'll talk about that, right? So it gives them the option and freedom to decide, and the autonomy to decide for themselves how they want to handle it. And I think that, the no secrets policy is, an effective way to work. It's just not the way that we do things, because we've also found this to be effective and to give a lot of good information too, not just for infidelity, but also some people just feel freer to talk about things that they're not yet ready to talk about in front of their partner in an individual session. And they need that help or that coaching to, okay, I want to talk about this, but I'm scared, or I want to talk about this, but I don't know the words to say. Like, how do I bring this up? And am I emotionally or mentally prepared for what the outcome could be of this? And like wanting to work through that with the therapist.
Right. And then also finding out things like about pain, right? We've talked in our other mini, talk about pain and what we wish we'd known. But it can be the expression of dissatisfaction, feeling aversive because of pain that might lead, but never telling the partner that you're in pain, that impacts the partner to go, they're not really into this, or they're not really into me.
Yeah.
I'd rather be, let me go and have an experience where I don't even have to think about whether my partner's enjoying it. I actually can tell they're enjoying it. Right? Now, these are not excuses for breaking one's sexual exclusivity agreement. So please don't take this the wrong way of what we're saying, but it does contribute to, if a couple wants to repair and stay together, that you're going to need to know this information.
Yeah. And also that not everyone that experiences infidelity or goes through that wants to end the relationship, even if it's something that they've always said, oh, if my partner betrays me, if my partner cheats on me, I'm definitely going to leave them. It might come to, this happened, and now they're deciding, maybe I do want to stay, or they're in that ambiguous place where they don't know, do I want to stay or do I want to leave, and we want to work through that. And part of that recovery or relationship recovery is talking through those things and integrating that, okay, this is what led to the
Right.
infidelity. This is how I felt when it happened. This is how I feel now. Like, where are we here, and processing that all together.
Right. And I guess I would finish off by saying one of the things I wish I knew how to ask or to ask was when I had an infidelity case as a general couples therapist, is to ask whether they use condoms, any
Mm.
sort of barriers, whether they've been tested, whether they've asked their partner to get tested, how long the infidelity went on for, right? How
Mhm.
many partners they may have had. Like if part of the infidelity was going to parties, and not using barriers or for oral sex, let's say,
Mhm.
that's putting their partner at risk, right?
Yeah.
And I'm always surprised, maybe not surprised, when the hurt partner hasn't gotten tested
Mhm.
because they're so emotional, so caught up, right? Being emotionally winded from
Yeah.
this earthquake that just hit them, that they don't have the presence of mind to think about their physical health.
Yeah.
So that's where we stand in and sort of help them to say, hey, let's get you tested just to make sure that you're physically healthy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something I wish that I would have known when I was a general therapist too, is like how to ask those questions and to ask them, right? It's not just about the relational aspect, but it's also about the medical and sexual health aspect. And sometimes, when you're in a monogamous relationship for, let's say, 20 years, you're not thinking about STDs or getting tested, especially if something like this happens out of the blue and you're blindsided. You don't automatically go to that place of, oh, now I need to go to the doctor and get tested. Or there's a feeling of stigma or shame, especially, let's say you've had the same doctor for many years and they know that you're married and they know these things, maybe feeling like, oh, my partner cheated on me. Now I have to reveal this thing to my doctor that
Right.
we have this relationship. And it just is very emotionally heavy.
There's one last thing I wanted to add here, that there was a study that came out comparing people non-monogamous
Mhm.
compared to monogamous, ostensibly monogamous, that those people who identify as non-monogamous or polyamorous are more likely to talk about sexual health practices and use barrier methods, condoms in this case, uh, rather than those who are ostensibly monogamous,
Mhm.
if they go out of the relationship and break their monogamy agreement. So it's important to know. I think what you said before is really important.
Mhm.
Is not only um, what to ask, but also feeling capable of asking. I think you
Mhm.
did that nicely. And that's what we're trying to teach our therapists, right? Our
Yeah.
students is learning to feel okay, that it's okay to ask these questions,
Mhm.
and what to ask, the actual content.
Yeah. All right, that's all we have. So we'll see
Okay.
you all next week.
All right. Thanks.